This is the constellation Taurus, though she goes by Tori for short. A bull of great legend from across the ancient world. Tori is one of the oldest constellations we have written stories about, and one of the most consistent characters in various star maps from the ancient world. Today we shall look at some of the myths that spawned from this great bull of the heavens. The first story we have referencing Tori comes from the Epic of Gilgamesh. See, I wasn't exaggerating. The oldest known written story in human history, and she's in it. She is old. Anyways, her role in Gilgamesh is fairly brief. Ishtar, the goddess of love, sex, and war, which is quite the combination, made a pass at Gilgamesh for being so good at winning wars, while also being so handsome that it would be very easy to love him, even when he was covered in all sorts of gore. That isn't an exaggeration, look it up, Tablet 6 specifically. Ishtar is a certified freak. He rejected her thanks to the fact she had a tendency to punish her lovers for very arbitrary reasons. She didn't just kill them. She made a shepherd into a wolf so he would kill his favorite flock of sheep before having to live life as an animal. And don't get me started on the one she turned into a gopher. Really messed up stuff. Ishtar did not take the rejection well, and so asked her father for help in getting some justice. And by ask him for some help, I mean she threatened to break open the doors to the underworld so that the souls of the departed would come up to the living world and start eating people. Talk about aggressive negotiations. So, not wanting that to happen, her father let her use Tori for whatever purposes she needed, on the condition she ensure there was some grain saved away before she was unleashed. His reasoning was a fear that Tori would cause widespread famine from her uncontrollable appetite. See, she doesn't look so big these days, something like 9 feet tall from head to hoof. But back then, she was massive. Just look at this millennia-old painting. According to the story, one exhale was enough to blow a hole in the ground so large 100 men could fall in and be killed. So there was a real fear that, if hungry enough, she could just eat all the food in the world, and humanity would be screwed. But of course, that was all just hypothetical problems. Her main job was going to be to fight and kill Gilgamesh, which she failed miserably at. If it's any consolation, Gilgamesh did need help from his friend Enkidu in order to take her down. Enkidu needed to grab her tail to distract her before Gilgamesh could come in and get her. Since she's not exactly mortal, she was only defeated, not killed, but it did knock her out for a while. And unfortunately for her, that's not where the embarrassments end. Later that evening, Ishtar arrived to curse the two heroes in revenge, both for the spurred marriage proposal and because they beat up her monster. When Enkidu noticed her yelling at them from atop the city wall, he flung the haunch of the bull at her to get her to shut up, meaning that yes, Tori's last notable act in Babylonian mythology was knocking the goddess of sex and war off of a wall with her ass. Tori actually has more than one myth with the Greeks. They really seem to like her. Maybe that's why she has a fondness for them in return. Might be a sort of Stockholm syndrome though, since the stories she's in don't end well for her. Many people confuse Tori for the Minotaur of Greek myth, but that is wrong, as her original story actually comes from that of the Argusti princess Io. Io was of such great beauty, she attracted the attention of Zeus, who decided he wanted to have a bit of fun. Problem was, his wife Hera was keeping an eye on him over these exact trysts, and the clouds he tried to use to hide his little excursion didn't exactly make up for him being, you know, not on Olympus. When Hera came down to make sure he wasn't doing exactly what he was doing, Zeus panicked and turned Io into a cow. He simply pretended he was admiring the healthy cattle that the king of Argus was raising. Hera, suspecting some funny business, agreed the cow was beautiful, and so asked for it. And Zeus said yes, because denying his wife a cow he had no personal attachment to would look a bit suspicious. So Io lived as a cow for a bit, until Zeus found a way to fix everything. And by fix everything, I mean make everything worse. He sent Hermes to free Io, and Hermes interpreted that as kill Io's guard, which royally pissed off Hera. Since she couldn't punish the fellow Olympians over it, she decided to take out her fury on Io. Not with a literal fury, just a gadfly, who she sent to sting Io relentlessly, until she was as far away from home as possible. But weep not for Io, as she was able to return to her human form. Once she was beyond Hera's punishment, Zeus was able to revert her back to human form. Slightly. She still ended up having bovine horns. And I mean, not to harp on her size again, but I don't know if Argus princesses were usually 9 feet tall. Maybe it was like a conservation of matter thing. She ate too much while a prisoner in Hera's stables, and now needed to hold that weight or something. Anyways, you know how I said not to weep for Tori? That was only in relation to that story. The other Greek legends attached to her constellation are much less happy for her. I don't know what exactly happened in the intervening 12 generations, but in the next story, Tori the Taurus constellation has become the Cretan bull. Since these stories happened in ancient Greece, it's possible there was some sabbatical she'd gone on, during which all that Gilgamesh stuff happened from earlier. Regardless, by the time Heracles was around, she was back on her bullshit of laying waste to the countrysides, eating all of the crops. And thus bringing her to King Eurystheus became Heracles' 7th labor. One problem. While Heracles was more than able to wrestle with a giant bull, Heracles is also a legend who would later become the literal god of strength. So while the capturing and shipping of Tori back to the king went on without a hitch, Eurystheus didn't exactly figure out how he was going to keep the bull contained. So of course it didn't take her long to break out, where she caused a massive ruckus that Heracles wasn't around to stop, and then wandered into the fields of Marathon to get back to her favorite pastime of wrecking lands and eating all the crops. The last time Tori is mentioned in Greek mythology is a bit of a doozy. The king of Athens was holding the ceremonial Panathenaic Games, and the prince of Athens, Androgeus, was sweeping the competition. For reasons outside my understanding, the Athenian king decided it would be a great idea to have the Marathonian Bull of Legend, which is what Tori was going by at the time, be present as part of a parade and then used as a test of strength. Yes, the bull that could only be captured by the god of strength himself was going to be put up against a bunch of champions that I'm willing to bet none of you know the names of besides the one I just mentioned. Things went about as well as you'd expect, which is to say Tori got loose and went on a rampage. Sources differ as to how exactly she went about killing Prince Androgeus. Some claim she made it to the sparring pit, and Androgeus put up a good fight, but was ultimately felled by Tori before she turned round and started indulging in her newfound freedom, with no one strong enough to stop her. Others claim she didn't even make it to the fighting pit, just broke out of her pen in transport and trampled Androgeus as he fled in fear with everybody else. You can probably guess the biases at play here. The death of the prince spurred a war between Athens and the Cretans, which the Athenians won. Tori wasn't involved in the war, she was too busy enjoying her freedom in the only way she knew how. That all changed when the Greek hero Theseus arrived, challenged by the king of Athens Minos to avenge his dead son by defeating Tori. And he did so, dragging her all the way back to Athens, where she was subsequently sacrificed on a pyre to the gods. Taking pity on the poor girl who had been made into something else outside her circumstances, she was made into a constellation, so her stories would go on being remembered by all who looked into the night sky. Always remember, success is not measured in a lack of failures, but in how often you can rise and continue despite them. Tori would never have become the stars she is now if she didn't have amazing stories to tell, even if they didn't always end well for her. Be like the Taurus constellation. and always rise to the occasion, no matter your past.